Hello and welcome. My name is Lexi Jong and here I like to talk about luxury beauty. Today we are taking a look at the new palettes from Viseart. Viseart has just released 4 new Petit 4 quads and these are for spring 2022. Right now they are exclusive to Beautylish and there are 4 of these inspired by macarons. So you can see the actual packaging of all of these has a little gold foil macaron imprint all over. Very, very cute. Just like the other Petit Four, okay, these are magnetic and you have your palette information here. These are all 1.5 gram pans. It does come with a plastic tray. I recommend keeping this so that way when it's sealed up, you don't have any dust that can seep out of here. And because these are 1.5 gram pans, just like the Chantecaille Dew palettes and the Grande Pro 1 or GPX 1 rather, these are all magnetic. They're all the same size. You can interchange with any of those palettes. So Viseart makes palettes that have 1 gram, like the Petit Pros. And then I believe the new Petite Mattes are also 1 gram. And then these are 1.5 along with the Chantecaille Dew size, which is actually my favorite size, followed by this, and the GPX 1. And then there's also a 2 gram size, which was the original. So the larger, like the slim palettes and so forth, are going to be a 2 gram size. But they are all magnetic. You can interchange if you're looking for something to fit in here. Viseart does sell empty palettes in the quartet size as well as the GPX 1 size. So we're going to start off with some swatches. This one here is Lavande, and we have 4 shades here, 3 mattes and 1 shimmer. And let's put this up here. You can see that our mattes are a bit on the softer side. This is the deepest one. I'm just going to add a second layer of these first 2 just so you can see them a little bit better on camera here. And you can see though that they are very light, very soft. And then our shimmer is really going to be a bit more of a champagne shimmer. There's a little bit of a peachy tone to it, like a peachy nude tone to it. All 3 of the purples are more of a blue-based purple. However, this first one also has pink in there. So these are all going to be cooler tone purple shades, and I think they are really beautiful. This is the palette that is currently on my eyes, if you couldn't guess. This one here is Pistache. Unlike all Viseart palettes, these are made in the US and there is a 3-year shelf life on these. So here we have 2 shimmers and 2 mattes. We're going to leave some space here for some comparisons. You can see you have kind of like a warm brown there. It's like a warm neutral. Then we have a soft champagne shimmer. You can see this has more of a golden hue than the one in Lavande. And then we have a pistachio green shimmer that is going to be a bit lighter, followed by more of that brighter pistachio. So if you've looked at a pistachio nut and you pull it out of the shell and you take off all that like paper casing, this is more like that brighter green shade, and this is the more yellowish shade. But they really do look pretty true to a true pistachio, in my opinion. So these are 2 of the quads. We're going to use my other arm for the other 2. This one here is Pastille, and we have 3 mattes and 1 shimmer for these as well. And let's see here. So this first shade is kind of like a peachy ivory. Then we have a warm, more of a medium reddish brown, followed by a pretty coppery shimmer and a blue. So this blue here is kind of like the tone of an electric blue, but it's much softer, less pigmented, but it has that particular shade to it. You can see how vibrant it looks in the pan. I got a little powder in there, but yeah, this looks much more vibrant in the pan than it does on the skin. And last up we have Peche, and Peche we have 2 mattes and 2 shimmers. So let's take a look at these 4 here. So again, this is going to be a soft peachy ivory kind of shade, but you can see it's a little bit peachier. There's a little bit more orange in it than in Pastille, followed by a slightly more neutral shade. This is going to be a soft, more of a metallic peach with a touch of brown in there. And this is going to be more of a vibrant coral. So these two here are the shimmers. These two are the mattes. We're going to go ahead and look at some demos of these quads. I have 2 eye looks for each quad, and we're going to talk about my thoughts. So if you are familiar with my channel, you'll know that Viseart is one of my favorite brands. I just feel like they create really classic eyeshadows. The formulas are really easy to work with, and they perform really well on my eyes. And they've got really great mattes. I find their mattes are really easy to blend. The shimmers can be really soft, or you can get them wet. They're a wet dry formula, so you can get them more vibrant with like water, or I used the Esom Pro Mixing Medium here, Inglot Duraline. All of those items will work to get them to be a bit more vibrant. Now I do also sometimes use the matte shades wet, typically for a liner, but I have to note that in the Pastille quad here, I did get a little hard pan after getting it wet to go all over my eyes. So just something to note, I don't think the matte shades in there were necessarily intended to be used wet. So just a heads up. The shimmers, all of them perform beautifully wet, and no issues with hard pan or anything like that in the shimmer formula. It was really just the blue shade in the Pastille that ended up getting hard pan. Even the other palettes where I dipped into the mattes wet, I had no issues with those either. So as I was saying, Viseart, you know, they have some of my favorite palettes. I think one of the best palettes is the Cashmere Eton Dew palette. It's just a perfect go-to cooler tone neutrals with some mauvey tones in there. It's one of my favorites. I think it's fantastic. And as we mentioned, these are the 1.5 gram pan sizes, so you can easily mix and match shadows from those palettes with these. Now, the reason I'm mentioning this is because unfortunately, these are not my favorites from Viseart, and I'm a little disappointed. So it's probably personal preference, but I just thought that the matte shadows that were in these palettes, they just look more vibrant in the pan than how they go on. And I guess it just kind of, my expectations were set for more pigmentation, whereas really these are going to be a very, very soft wash of color. And I feel like certain shades kind of blend away. So I have all of the Petits 4 that have been released. And I have to say, not all 4 of these palettes kind of fall towards the bottom, but the overall launch collection, because there have been now 3 launches of 4 sets of Petits 4 each time. So I would say this overall launch falls at the bottom of those 3. But, you know, I feel like these actual quads are kind of hit or miss. So let's take a look at each of them. We started off with the Peche quad, and I actually think this one performs really well. All of the shadows go on nicely. The pigmentation on this is about what I expected. You've got these 2 light mattes that are great for blending, and they're soft. They work really well with my skin tone personally to give me like a light base. The shimmer shades are more pigmented, and I think they just perform very beautifully. So I think, you know, if you're interested in these peachy corally tones, this is a good one to pick up. So I have absolutely no issues with the Peche quad. I think it's a very nice quad. However, my biggest disappointment is the Pastille quad. And, you know, it's really because of this matte blue shade. The light shade in the top left corner, I think that's a really nice base shade. Again, great for blending. The reddish brown shade in the top right, I think that's a really nice shade. It performs well. That blends out nicely as well. And the copper shade in the bottom left is really gorgeous, very pigmented. You know, it's a very vibrant color. You can sheer that out if you want to brush it on softly on the lid. You can max it out for a really vibrant metallic copper by getting it wet. You can use it with your finger for application. That's going to make it more vibrant, but not quite as metallic looking as it would be wet. So, you know, I think those 3 shades are actually all really nice. My problem is the star of this palette, the one that your eye is drawn to, is going to be that matte electric blue. And as you can see in the demo, it just basically blends away. You can't really see it very well on the lid. So you have to get it wet to really see color. Even then, it's still not going to be as vibrant as what it is in the pan. And it's just, I feel like this one in particular is kind of a dud. So it's even getting it wet, it's harder to get a smooth, non-patchy application with this shade. And if you use it dry, you can't really see the blue, even when you layer it on top of other colors. It's just, that particular shade doesn't work well. And unfortunately, at least for me, that was the purpose of getting that blue, the Pastille quad, was this blue shade. I was so excited for this blue shade. It looks so, just vibrant and ready for summer and spring. And unfortunately, I think that shade needs, it just doesn't work. So I cannot recommend the Pastille quad for that reason, because I feel like even if you're looking for a soft blue, this is so soft, you can't really see it. And it pretty much just blends away. So yeah, that's kind of what soured me on this particular launch for the most part, was that. Moving on to the Pistache quad. This one is nice. I think it's a good quad, but I don't think it's a great quad. So again, the matte brown performs beautifully, really like that. The champagne shimmer with a touch of gold is very nice, but again, it is going to be a little bit softer in pigmentation than I expected. However, that's not really a problem. It still looks nice. It shows up. It gives you a little bit of that gold reflect. So it performs well. It's just not as pigmented as I was expecting. And the same goes with the green shimmer. It's also very soft, but I think it's a very beautiful color. And again, that looks very nice. I think finger application of these two shimmer shades is best with this particular quad, but I think they're nice. They're just not the best ones I've ever used from Viseart. The matte green, I think, is nice. It's much better than the blue matte in the Pastille, but again, it is going to be a little bit softer in pigmentation than I expected. And if you continue blending, this shade will kind of blend away so that you can't see it too well. So, I just think it's a mediocre shade. It's better than the blue, but it's definitely not a great, it's not a great one. So, I think the Pistache palette is okay. Last Petit Four launch, there was a green palette called Peridot. We'll look at that. But I think if you're looking for a green quad, that's a better option than the Pistache, personally. So I'm kind of sorry to say that, because, purple and greens, those are my two favorite colors. So I'm always super excited for a new green quad. And this one it's nice, but it's only okay. And so anyway, moving on to the Lavande, which is what I have on my eyes. I have to say that this is my favorite of the four that were released. The shimmer shade goes on very nicely. It's a little bit more pigmented than the shimmer shade in the Pistache. And this one has a little bit more of like almost like a little bit of a mauvey tone, mauvey and a little bit of peach kind of mixed into an ivory base, like a champagne ivory base. So there are some undertones in there that definitely go with these purples. And I think that the light shades on here are very pretty. If you leave them kind of more built up, you can definitely distinguish all of the colors. The lightest shade in the top left, that has a little bit more of a pink undertone. It's definitely visible. You can tell it apart from the other three matte purples. However, if you start blending these shades out, the two on the right, they can kind of, if you keep blending them out, they kind of look very similar. So we obviously have the one shade that's a lot deeper, but the tones on those two are more similar. So I think they're all nice, but they're just not as distinctive on the eye as I was hoping for. Mostly, I think the top right shade. I like that shade. I just think it might be too close in tone to some of the others if you are really trying to blend it. So I think maybe if that shade had been a shimmer shade, that would have changed this whole quad and it would have made it a great quad instead of a good quad. And again, the shimmer shade in here is very nice. So overall, I have to say I like this one. This one is my favorite. And I have to say that this one in particular is one that I would put much higher up on the list for, you know, my ranking of the Petit Four quads in general. I'd say if you're looking to try two from this collection, the Lavande and the Peche are the two best ones formula-wise. So I hope that was helpful. Let's go ahead and take a look at some comparisons. Most of the comparisons are going to be Viseart, but I do also want to take a look at the Natasha Denona Pastel palette as well. And we're going to start off with the Viseart Violette Étendue. This is my favorite purple palette, but I really wanted to take a look at this shade here because this one, and we'll look at this one here, these two remind me of the first two shades in the Lavande. So let's put them here. You can see how much more pigmented that is. Both of these are going to be more pigmented, but the tones are very similar. So it's almost as though the Lavande was almost like a watered down version of those two shades. So we don't have a shade in here that is similar to the Champagne. This would be the closest, but it's a lot deeper. And this deep purple here is going to be, it's a shimmer, but tone wise, it is most similar to this one here. So let me show you. So those are those two. You can see the difference. This is definitely going to have more mauve in there, and it is much more pigmented than this shimmer. And this purple has a stronger blue base, and of course it's shimmery. Now we don't have much from the Natasha Denona Pastel palette that really matches up with these colors, but I do want to look at Feather with Lavande. So let's take a look at that. We'll put that one right here so you can kind of see. Tonally, it's very similar to the first shade, but you can see that this is going to be more pink than the Viseart Lavande. And then I want to take a look at Bubble because even though, let me show you the Pastille one, it looks much more vibrant in the pan. I mean, look at this. This is definitely more electric blue. I think these are going to be a little bit more similar on the eye. I'm just going to put this right underneath. You can see this is more of a sky blue, but it's also, you can even tell just in the swatch that it's more pigmented than the one in the Viseart palette. While we've got this out, let's also take a look at Bellini, which is this peach shade. We're going to put this right here. You can see it's going to be a deeper version of the second shade in the Peche quad. So we're not going to look at all of the Petit Four palettes because, you know, they don't all match, but we're going to look at certain ones. This one here is Chocolat, and we're going to compare this here. Let's look at this first brown with the Peche. You can see that's going to, let's look at it with Pastille actually. We're going to look at this shade with Pastille as well. And the shimmer. So let me put those up here. It's much harder to swatch on this arm, but you can see that the shades here are actually pretty similar, these two. The finishes are different, but they're pretty similar. So this one and this I feel like are pretty close. This is going to be very similar to the coppery shade. This has more brown and it's matte. This is Praline. We're going to take a look at this lighter brown here with the lighter brown. Oh, no, that doesn't quite go. Let's take a look at Lapis. So this is the other blue one that has been released. We're going to swatch. We'll swatch all four of these, even though they don't quite all match, but you can see these are much more vibrant. So let's see here. Let's try to match up colors. So this is the third shade, which is kind of a shimmery nude. Here's the blue. You can see how much more vibrant that blue is. This is closest to our copper shade, but you can see that's going to be lighter and softer. And then the other shade we have is a silver. So if you're looking for blue, I would definitely recommend going with the Lapis. It's a really nice quad. And here's Peridot. So as I mentioned, this green quad is great. It's definitely one of my favorite green palettes that I own. I mean, look at the tones in here. You got kind of a grungy brown. This brown is similar, but it's cooler in tone. You've got this nice vibrant emerald. And then this pistachio green is similar to this, but this is gonna be a brighter spring green. You can see it's also gonna be more strongly pigmented. And this one here is Garnet. I wanna take a look at this coppery shade here, and we're going to put this right, let's put it here, I guess, so we can see. This is going to be a little bit more yellow and less red, but you can see that those are fairly similar. And this here is the Petite 4 in Lilas. We don't have anything like the Lavande palette, but I mean, aside from the Violette, but this is going to be our closest. You can see it's got kind of more mauvey tone neutrals. I really love this one. It's a really great palette. Definitely one of my most used. Just some others to look at. This is Paris Love Letter. This is an Étendue palette. We're gonna take a look at this purple and the Peche and the greens here. So let's start with the purple. And let's put that right here. You can see that it's not gonna be quite the same as any of the others. Let's take a look at the green while we're working on this arm. And you can see that it's a shimmery shade, but it's very similar to this green matte in Pistache. It's gonna be a little bit brighter though. For the Peche, let's look at this one and this one. So put them down here. And you can see that these are going to be more vibrant. This is actually more of a slightly peachier version of this coral, but it's matte. And this is just, yeah, it doesn't quite go with those. And this one here is Soleil La Plage, Étendue. And let's take a look at this coral shade here and see how this compares. We'll put that right there. And you can see this is gonna be more vibrant, more reddish as well. And then let's also take a look at this coppery peachy shade here. We'll put that right here. Yeah, no, that's more of like a vibrant mandarin orange. Just doesn't quite go with those. And I think that's it for these. This is the Bohem Dream palette. And we're going to take a look at this. This one's been discontinued, I believe. So let's take a look at these two greens. And let's put them right here. Again, much more vibrant. This one's more like grass green than pistachio. And then blue-wise, let's go ahead and take a look at these two blues. Again, these are going to be more vibrant as well. You can see how bright those are. This is more like what I was expecting, just a matte version of that. And here is Koi. Let's start with these greens. And let's see here. I guess we'll put them down here. That's more of a grungy, more of a teal. Okay. Let's take a look at these two purples here as well. And let's see, I guess put one right here. Oh, that's really pretty though. I haven't used this palette yet. You can see this is gonna be similar. These are all shimmers in the Koi palette, by the way. I believe it's been discontinued. This is gonna be a little bit more red than this one, but you can see that it's a similar tone. Here is the peach. More orangey. And let's take a look at this. I think this one's going to be too pink. But let's see. Yeah, definitely too pink. That is pink with more of a, like an orangey shift. And then let's take a look at the light blue. Too aqua. So I hope this was helpful. Overall, I would have to say that this launch was an okay launch, but it was a little bit disappointing for me just because some of the shades were lighter than expected and just didn't perform up to my standards. However, I do really like some of these, and the Lavande is definitely my favorite of these four. I think Peche also performs just as well, followed by Pistache and then Pastille. I will be using all of these quads still. However, I think I will probably remove the blue shade from Pastille and replace it with one of the Viseart singles to make that quad a little bit more usable for me. And I think overall, these are nice shades to have in addition to mix and match with some of the other quads that we looked at. For example, mixing Lavande and Lilas, I think is going to be a really good one. And I really like mixing some of these pistachio shades also with the peridot, to kind of tone the peridot down a little bit as well. So I think overall, there are some good shade additions here. So let me know what you think of this launch and if you picked up any of these, if you've tried any of the Viseart Petite 4 before, and which one's your favorite? I would love to know. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you very soon.